Pima County Sheriff Chris Nano says DNA has been recovered from gloves and that DNA has also been found on other evidence in Nancy Guthrie's house.
The DNA tests that have been done, has anything come back and pointed toward anyone in particular?
Well, no, we have DNA.
They have DNA. Multiple people have been detained, as well as quite a snazzy vehicle. Have a look at this. At this point, it appears the individual we see on camera wasn't operating alone, and also the intention here didn't seem to be to kidnap or to abduct anyone, let alone collect a ransom. So if it was a botched home invasion, what went wrong?
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
What went wrong? Possibly precisely what we see on camera, which is the fact that one of the suspects told the others he had been caught on camera, and this spooked the others. And then perhaps there was an attempt to locate the footage, and they would need Nancy's phone and her cooperation to do that. It's possible while they were trying to assess whether or not they were screwed, that one of them struck Nancy, perhaps simply not believing her, not believing that the footage wasn't locatable on her phone. Why? Because she didn't have a subscription to that service. But then things took a turn for the worse. By abducting Nancy, what may have started as a home invasion, a burglary, ended up becoming what unfortunately appears to be a homicide. And this is also why the kidnapping narrative never really made sense. It's not clear whether the abductors, realizing who Nancy was, decided to ransom her. I suspect it may have been the opposite. They didn't realize who she was, and by the time they did, it was too late. And now they're sitting with a body. They can't hold on to it, and they can't dispose of it. Also, they can't go anywhere, and the community-wide alert to all the Ring camera owners, I suspect, finished them off, because as it turns out, they do seem to live in the area. Not the immediate area, they're not neighbors, but they do seem to live quite nearby. Now, my Ring system picks up vehicles, and I wouldn't be surprised if it picked up this Range Rover, not just one system, but several. And think about it, this is a vehicle that stands out. And all someone would also really have to do is stake out that particular area, speak to the neighbors, ask them, does this guy look familiar to you? We also see some possible confirmation for what I said about we covered what we see every day. The suspects in this case seem to be from an area nearby, less than 2 miles away. The less than 2 miles part is also interesting. Were the gloves that were thrown away were they on the way to this other residence? In other words, where those gloves were found, was it between Nancy's residence and the suspect's residence? If so, then it suggests what they saw every day may not have been Nancy, but a very nice home, and perhaps that was their target. Also, breaking news on day 14, the authorities have located foreign DNA inside Nancy's home, and so if it turns out to belong to one of the 3 suspects, the cops will have a pretty strong case on their hands.
So, trust me, if we knew who it was, we'd be on it. But we do have some DNA, and we'll continue to work with the lab on that DNA analysis.
Is that DNA that you have, you believe, might be the suspects? It just doesn't match anyone in a lab, or?
What we have is we have some DNA, and we don't know whose it is.
I do want to ask you, and this is obviously without knowing the answer, what do you think has broken this case or provided the breakthrough? DNA evidence or digital evidence? Also, what do you think provided the breakthrough? Was it locating the vehicle, identifying a vehicle and tracing that vehicle to its source, as we saw in the Tepe murders, or somebody recognizing dude in the CCTV camera and basically providing that information? Something else that I just want to mention is it's possible that the crooks couldn't get that camera off where it was secured, and they wanted Nancy's help in doing that, and they got frustrated when she couldn't, I guess, assist them, and they didn't really have a tool to do that, and that then escalated. Because it seems like Nancy was outside on the porch with them, confronting this camera, which, as we saw in the beginning, was difficult to deal with. And then one final point. Who really solved this case? The sheriff or the FBI? Because we know they were in a kind of pissing contest. Well, it would be interesting to know who won it in the end.
So we'll keep looking.
Well, that's significant.
Well, it is, yeah.
And that was from the house?
I'm not telling you where it was. We have DNA.
This comes as multiple news reports accuse Nanos and his department of withholding key DNA evidence from the FBI.
Now, I'm not going to take it further than that, but one thing I do want to sort of head off is I'm sure many of you are going to dismiss all of this as speculation, but I do think it's important, it does have value to test how well one can figure something out without all the information. It's almost like that sketch artist. You've got a few clues to what this guy looks like. Well, how good are you as a sketch artist? Can you fill in the missing pieces? And that applies to us as well. I'm talking about true crime creators and people whose business it is to do this. How good are you at figuring out pieces of a puzzle? And I think that is something that needs to be assessed after this as well. How well did certain people do? How many people thought that this was a kidnapping? How many people thought that the ransom notes were real? I mean, until right now, I think that guy in TMZ is still talking about a third ransom note. Is that legitimate? Should we have been paying attention to that all the time, or should we have not been paying attention to that all the time? So it is very important to self-examine ourselves in a time like this, and not only in hindsight, because it's very easy to be a Monday morning quarterback. And although I think it's important to measure some true crime creators according to the standard, it's also quite important to do the same with yourself. How good were you at following the facts, thinking strategically, thinking critically, putting all this evidence together? Was it random or was it systematic? And how close did you come to knowing actually what was taking place all along? Does that make sense? Anyway, thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.